Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hey there, welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host, and I'm glad to see you back. Hey, if you wouldn't mind, when you go online, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. It's on any one of your favorite channels, Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, you name it. And while you're out there, you got to go check out the globalinvestoragent.com website, particularly if you're a licensed agent. And the reason is you know as well as I do, the market is changing, and you better have some investors in your pocket, or it's going to get pretty slim pickings out there. So go to that website, click on the More button, or Learn More button, and get some information about this. And if you're an investor, do like everybody else does. Go out there for free, and pick yourself an agent in your area. We got half the states covered. And they have access, listen to this, to every single property in the country. They know how to identify, analyze, negotiate properties for you and I, the investors. So best thing since pizza. So in any case, I've got a great guest today, JD Sustar from Anderson, South Carolina, and he knows some of the same places I know because that's where my family's from, and I used to live there. So JD, welcome aboard, man.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to hang out today.
Yeah, well, I am too. I love the subject. And I like the fact that you learn to leverage your 401k. And I did the same thing when I got started. I leveraged it. I did it the first time I was scared. And then I kept doing it over and over again. It was so easy and so inexpensive. And when you pay yourself back, you're paying yourself back with interest. So you're making money on the money you borrowed from yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anytime you can be the bank, it's a win.
Oh, my gosh. Well, if you could, go ahead and start us off on how you actually got into that. How did you come you're still working. I used to work too when I first got started, but kind of take us through that process. What was it a plan, well thought out plan, or was it just one thing led to another kind of a thing,
When you're talking about getting into real estate in general?
Yeah. Yep.
So I came out of college, got into the working world, and, kind of like anybody who's younger, didn't really take care of the finances. And didn't do awful things, but I came out of college with over $60,000 in student loan debt. I had a truck loan, had some credit card debt, and took the old classic Dave Ramsey course, which I don't agree with everything he says, but it was good for me at 22 years old. And started taking my finances serious, got rid of the bad debt, and really started scaling my income. I'm in sales and started out making a very modest salary in the service industry, worked my way up to now I'm in medical device, and finances are in check, have some income coming in, and now it's a matter of, okay, what am I going to do with this extra money now? We can go blow it or we can invest it. And I knew that I wanted to invest it. And so it was just, where are we going to invest it? And the market seemed boring to me. I didn't understand it that much. But real estate seemed very interesting. And if you look at history, a lot of people have invested in real estate and been very successful. And I had my father-in-law who had bought properties throughout the years. And then my best friend had gotten into real estate right out of college. And he just kept pulling on me, hey, you got to get in. It's really growing my net worth. And he actually brought me my first property in 2018, single family home in Greenville, South Carolina. Bought that first one, got through all the jitters in the stomach, and it was, it was off to the races after that.
Nice. Yeah, Greenville for a long time has been a great market for investing, especially flipping. In fact, one of the very first flipping shows was based out of Greenville, South Carolina. And my mother's parents lived there, right on 27 Rock Creek Drive, right off of Augusta Boulevard. My mom went to Greenville High, back in the 50s, and so it's fun for me watching that stuff on TV. I was like, holy smokes, I knew some of those areas,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that first one, was that a flip or was that a buy and hold? Or tell us about that one.
So the first property that I bought long-term was in 2018, and it was a buy and hold, 3-bed, 2-bath brick ranch home in Greenville, South Carolina. Now, I actually, and I failed to mention this, dabbled in real estate for the first time in 2015. I got a private loan from a family member. I was actually living in Jacksonville, Florida at the time, and I'd lived in West Palm Beach for a little bit before. And I'd met, a realtor there who had worked with investors, and I was in Jacksonville. She brought me a good deal. I had no money at the time, but I went and I got private money and flipped the home, and it was a disaster. I mean, it was a total disaster. Me and the private investor, we split the profits 50-50. I think we both walked away with like 8 to 10 grand a piece. So we still made money. Could have been worse. We didn't lose money, but the contractors weren't showing up in time. They did work without pulling a permit. We got caught. It took a lot longer. It was a total disaster. So I learned a lot there. And then, as I progressed and got my finances in check, I knew I wanted to build real long-term wealth and already had good income coming in. So I really started focusing in on the long-term play.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, on that, excuse me, on that first one, did you use the 401k then? Did you borrow against your 401k? Is that how did that part come into play there? I mean, because I used to do the same thing. It was easy,
No, so with the flip, I used private funding, and then with the original, the first long-term rental I bought in Greenville, I actually used my own money. You look back, and I've used my money on a lot of deals, and there's some people say I only use other people's money, and I've done a lot of that as well. But I saved up, and I was like, okay, I could go find some money, or what else am I going to do with my money? Go blow it? I don't want to sit in a savings account. And so I put 20% down, and I got a commercial on a 20-year amortization with a 5-year balloon.
Nice.
And I think interest at the time was 5.75 in 2018, which is funny because today everybody's whining about a 6% interest rate. And I'm like, back in 2018 on these commercial loans, these portfolio loans, it was the same as it is today. So luckily today it doesn't really bother me that much. But that's how I financed the first one. And then, as I progressed, I used different creative methods along the way.
Yeah. Yep. What's funny is I started investing in January 1986, and interest rates were still really high. And in fact, we couldn't even. I mean, my college roommate and I, his name's Socrates. He's down here in Florida too, by the way. We assumed the owner's first mortgage. It was a VA mortgage, and you can still assume VA mortgages today. By the way, people have been saying for 20 years you can't assume mortgages anymore. Like, nope, that's not true. You can assume VA mortgages, and also variable rate mortgages are often assumable.
Interesting.
But so we refinanced the first. I'm sorry, we assumed his first one. He had a second mortgage. The seller had a second that we refinanced with our own second. And Sock's dad co-signed for that one because we were just 22, 23 years old, just started working, and then we gave the owner a third note for the remaining equity. So we really were creative in that deal. But
wow.
Tell you what, man, it was a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom ranch in Virginia Beach. Paid $63,000 for it. So imagine what that thing's worth today. It's easily $500,000. And but 2 years later, I got married, and Sock bought me out, and I had about $3,000 into it. I got about $8,000 out, and I remember his dad pounding his chest, telling us, "If you boys do what I tell you to do, when you're 35 years old, you won't have to work for anybody else." And so I went and bought my own home, and of course started having children and stuff. And in any case, I started investing again. Later on, the rest of is history. But let's go back to how do you like? I understand you have videos that show all this stuff, but what's one of your secrets or your go-to methods for finding and analyzing a good rental property?
I think a lot of folks, when they go to, they start thinking about how do I find rentals, it can be very overwhelming, especially to the new investor. And there's a number of different ways. I mean, there are a plethora of ways that you can find properties, but I really think at the core, it starts at networking. And I know that sounds cliche, but you will have, at least in my experience, more deals brought to you for the least amount of money just by letting everybody know that you're looking to buy rental properties.
Yep.
And so I start there. I let everybody in whatever area I'm looking to buy know, hey, I'm buying rental properties. I talk to the locksmiths. I talk to the electricians. And then a huge play, which you guys seem to do it well with investors, is get a realtor who understands the investment space. Yeah. Because if you really can cling on to one who knows what they're doing, then they are going to feed you properties nonstop. Because it's a win-win for both of you guys. And so those are the ways that have really worked best for me. I got some off of cold calling, obviously, over time. And then I've even found them just on the MLS and Zillow, which is harder to do now because of, everybody knows their house is worth more. But I really think, building out that network is key to keeping that pipeline full.
I agree. We I teach a class every Monday night called Monday Night Live. And one that has come up probably 3 times in the last month. The fact that, investors and agents alike need to belong to local chamber of commerce, a local BNI group, BNI meaning the Business Network International.
Mm-hmm.
And the big one is RIA, Real Estate Investors of America, REIA. I was a keynote speaker for them in the 2018 annual cruise. When I was one of the speakers, I actually shared the stage with the president. How that happened, I have no idea. But you know what?
Cool.
There's some good people in that group, and you meet so many other people from different business sectors that serve the investor community, lenders, appraisers, insurance people, inspectors. I mean, there's insurance you can get that's just for invested property, and then it's not that expensive. It's cheaper than the usual Allstate and those guys, actually. But
Exactly.
but Betty, one of my agents, just put on an event at the Tampa Club this past Thursday. I was a speaker there, and she walked away with business. It just, you have to put yourself out there. It's just like dating. If you don't go out and meet people, you ain't gonna be doing much dating. So you might as well get out there, meet people, get yourself some properties. In any case, I appreciate you sharing that little factoid there. Now, one of the things I noticed is you're able to show people how to avoid short-term capital gains. So does that more have to do with the rentals? Or is it more about the flips? Like when they flip something, what can they do to avoid the gains there? I mean, kind of fill us in there if you don't mind a little bit.
Yeah, so I run a brand that's on social media called Finance Cowboy, and so I give out a lot of information where I'm really, my mission is to teach everyday person how to invest in real estate. That's what I set out to do. A lot of people do real estate actively. I have my license and I have flipped, but I've never relied on it as my sole income. And so I want to kind of be that voice to the people who, maybe they don't want to do real estate full time, but they do want to build generational wealth through passive income. And so one of the many topics I talk about is, how real estate just in general is such a hedge against taxes. You can 1031 exchange and you can defer your taxes. You can cash out refi. You're not having to pay taxes on that, the HELOC. And so, to your specific question is you can avoid short-term capital gains in the rental market by just holding property for a year. At that point, it's taxed at long-term capital gains if you sell it, and you're capped at 20% as it stands this year. And but the message is the all-around tax benefits with real estate. And then obviously you can go deeper with the depreciation, bonus depreciation, getting the cost segregation. And, you just look around and it's hard to find any other asset that allows you to grow so much wealth through all this appreciation, through this forced appreciation, through tenant buy down, and then potentially not have to pay taxes or defer taxes, or pay limited taxes. It's pretty darn cool.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little about the money, because I know people are getting concerned. I know interest rates are going up, and as the economy goes into correction mode, and it's already in correction mode, and by definition we're in a recession. It just doesn't feel that bad because there's an inertia effect in the economy, particularly real estate. So whatever happens today, you won't feel the effects for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later. But the reality is any downturn, the banks do tend to tighten up a little bit. They tighten up their lending standards. Of course, rates are higher, so people are looking for alternatives. So what are some of the, how can people starting out get the money that they need if they don't have any of their own cash? What are some, I mean, you mentioned a few things already, but what are some of your go-to techniques, if you don't mind sharing?
So depending on your scenario, I think one of the great ways, the best ways that you can get into real estate as a newbie is through house hacking. If anybody listening doesn't know what that is, essentially you buy a house, you live in one room, you rent out the others, or you buy ideally a multifamily up to a quadplex, live in one unit, rent out the other units. And that's so beneficial because you don't have to put that much money down. So if you're strapped for cash, you can put as little as 3.5% down, or if you have a VA loan, you can put essentially no money down, and then your terms are on a 30-year note. And so that's a beautiful way to get into it. Another way is, and this is getting into a different market, but short-term rentals right now, you can get into short-term rentals if you already own a primary home as a secondary home with only 10% down. Mm-hmm. And then how to get in without your own money is to partner with private lenders or hard money lenders. So they're essentially going to be the same thing. I look at private money as somebody who's kind of in my immediate network, a family member, a friend of a friend, where a hard money lender is going to be somebody who lends out these bridge loans, these short-term loans for a, short period of time. And so, everybody has probably heard of, if you haven't, the Burr method: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. It's a method that I have used in my portfolio building, to where you just go and you get private money for a short period of time, and then you buy the property in cash. If you need to rehab it, try to get the private lender to give you the rehab bucks, get it all fixed up, get a renter in there, and then you go to the bank and refinance out at the 75, 80% of the new appraised value, pay the lender back plus his fee, and now you got a property with little to no money down.
Yeah.
And so that is a fantastic way to do it. And then there's other methods, which I don't want to sit here and act like I'm savvy at, but you can do wraparound mortgages, subject to assuming mortgages like you did. And so there's a lot of different creative ways that you can get into real estate without having to have a ton of capital up front.
Yeah. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for participating in the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. Also wanted to let you know that the book Global Investor Agent is officially out in print and in Kindle on Amazon. You can get it by clicking on the link right here. If you are an agent, definitely grab yourself a copy. This book, guys, was not just written by me. I also included 8 other investor agents from around the country. And I didn't just handpick them. I literally opened it up to the entire audience, and it was first come, first serve. So you're going to get feedback from radio agents all the way up to top 25 team leaders, some on my team, some are not on my team, with valuable insight and instructions and guidance and actual checklists to follow to not just survive but thrive in this market. I know you're looking for that advantage, and this is it. By the way, if you are an investor, grab a copy for your agent. And for everybody, all profits from the sale of the book, Kindle and print, all go to the Healing House Foundation, 100%. Thank you for doing that too, guys. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, it's interesting using the Burr method. This was before we even had the term Burr.
Yeah.
And but that's how I bought probably, I would say 75% of my properties using the Burr method.
Yeah.
Because at the time we'd buy them, we'd remodel them, like you said, run them out, refinance them, and repeat. And when we refinance, we got the loan based on the new value, the improved value. So we always got all of our money back. Plus, a lot of times, quite frankly, this was going to probably shock some people because the price was making it hard to do today. But it was not unusual to pull out, tens of thousands of dollars in cash.
Yeah,
and still leave equity in the property. And I built up, when I first started doing that, it was in my second year. My first year I was using a 401k, home equity loan, personal line of credit, cash I had, and I bought 10 properties, duplexes, triplexes, or fourplexes. The second year, I learned what we now call the Burr method. And within a year, not only did I have another 17 properties with equity, because I didn't finance 100%, I financed 75%, had cash flow, and all the excess money I pulled out in cash, it was over $200,000. I mean, I had bankers calling me up saying, "Hey, what are you going to do with that money?" And of course, I'm Mr. Frugal, so I wasn't going to go buy a boat and a car. I made that mistake right out of college. Bought a boat, did everything Mr. Sock's dad, his name's Mr. Demet, everything he told us not to do, that's what we did. We just had fun. We were living at the beach. I mean, 23 years old, we did exactly what we're supposed to do, But in any case, so going forward, times are changing. So right now, let's talk about flipping, for example. Let's say somebody brings you a flip, friend, neighbor, relative, coworker. What kind of things do you look for? Macro, micro, the neighborhood, the town, the industries. What are some of the things that help you gain confidence that, this is going to be a good flip, and the other factors aren't going to there's a low probability that they'll squash your profit,
So for me personally right now, I'm not flipping a ton, mainly because of, a little bit of market uncertainty. So I feel as though real estate's going to be A-okay. I don't have a crystal ball, so don't say, hey, this guy said real estate's going to be fine, because it could all go kaplunk. But I feel as though when we look in a 5-year outlook, everything's going to be okay because of the supply. I mean, there's just such a shortage of supply. And I think what's happening is everybody is a little spooked by these interest rate rising, which in my opinion, these interest rates aren't that bad. I mean,
I agree.
You look, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and it was like they were in the teens. And right now they're at what, 6.5, which is probably actually healthy. Where we were is unhealthy. But because I think houses are going to sit a little longer for the next, 6 months to a year because of the spook in interest rates, I haven't been flipping as much. And so I've really been focusing on long-term rentals and hedging that inflation over the next few years. But when I do flip, I keep it pretty simple. And that's kind of my philosophy in everything we do is, I look in neighborhoods. My ideal neighborhood, whether I'm buying a long-term rental or I'm flipping, is a B to C class neighborhood. So it's not the best neighborhoods in town, and it's not the worst neighborhoods in town. I don't want a bunch of crime, and I'm not going to be able to do it in the most affluent areas. But these neighborhoods where you're still getting appreciation, but maybe there's some decent renters. It may be lower middle class. But people still want to live there. And so I'm just when I'm looking for deals, I'm looking at the comps and saying, okay, what can conservatively a property sell for here at the top? If I'm looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath, what are these 3-bed, 2-baths fully fixed up going to sell for? And then I look at that and say, okay, what do I need to buy for? And then what am I going to spend? And so I really just, keep it simple, and I'm looking to profit, and this may be low for some people. Some people, get on the internet or whatever and talk about, minimum $50,000 per flip. Well, in my market, homes aren't that expensive. I can get a home for $100,000 and turn around and flip it. And if I'm making 25, 25 or plus, that's a good deal for me. And so, I really, like I said, I keep it simple. Look at the comps. What do I need to buy it for? Based on what I'm going to put into it, and is it a good deal or is it not?
Yeah, I agree. It's it's interesting. In the last recession, before it actually started late 2007, August of 2007. The stock market really started tanking. It was teetering. I'm like, I've seen this before. So I had sold my last flip literally on July 30th, 2007.
Wow.
And I was like, I cleared $75,000. I'm thinking this is pretty good. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to hold off on the flipping. It feels weird. I don't trust it. Like you said, it's uncertain. And thank goodness I did. And I already had a big pile of rentals. And what was really neat is I discovered that while fewer people were becoming homeowners, by default, that meant more people were becoming renters. And I had a lot of stock. At that point, I had a couple hundred units. And so, at least the crappy properties, we didn't really raise our rents there, but the really good ones, we definitely raised our rents, and people were willing to pay it. And it was amazing because everybody thought, well, you're going to lose your shirt. And I'm thinking, that's not what's happening. In fact, our business grew sixfold in those recession years. So just amazing,
I mean, it really is kind of a hedge against it. If you're buying good properties that are in good shape, that cash flow, I mean, it's like you said, more people are going to flood to that. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's go over to, I'll call it like the personal side of things. So I know you're talking about helping people steer clear of bad debt, bad consumer debt, and college. So I went to college. Both my kids went to college. Now, just to give you a comparison, I went to college. The entire thing cost $20,000. I got a degree in computer science. My first year employment, I made $20,000. So 2 decades later, well, a little bit more than that, two and a half, 3 decades later, my children both went to college at a small private out-of-state college. It was $200,000 each, and they came out and made respectively $30,000 and $40,000 each, a fraction of the total cost of college versus mine, which was a 1-for-1 ratio in the first year. So, in any case, I'm gonna stop there and let you pick up from there. I mean, what are your? I'm not against college. I think if you know you want to be an architect or a dentist, absolutely go to college. But if you don't know what you want to do, why spend 4 years on all that money? So.
Yeah, so I went to college. I have a degree, 4-year degree, and I went pretty much to play baseball, and they forced me to get a degree while I was there. So I got one. But yeah, college has gotten outrageous at the cost. I had close to 50% scholarship to play baseball, and it was a private school, but it was Division I, and I was stubborn and wanted to play Division I. Wasn't thinking about money, and I still came out with over $60,000 in student loans.
Yeah.
And, luckily I've had a high income and got into real estate and was able to take care of them. But the problem is these industries, these corporations, if you're not an entrepreneur, okay, if you're not going to go out and do your own thing and build your own businesses, if you do want to go work for a corporation to get a good paying job, right now, the way the system's set up is you got to have a college degree. And so I don't think college makes you any smarter. I know some of the wealthiest and brightest people I know never went to college. But what it does do in today's climate, which I think is changing as we progress, is it gives you a key to unlock opportunities that you wouldn't have otherwise. And so while logically, I think it makes sense to go to college only if you're doing that more niche program, the doctor, the lawyer, nurse. Unfortunately, if you're not going to be a hustler, then you need it potentially to, start out making more money, or maybe not even start out making more money, but have a higher ceiling within the corporate world. And so it's at a crossroads, in my opinion, and I think it'll be interesting to see how it changes. I think so many people can make money digitally now, and so many people are feeling empowered to be entrepreneurs, and you have a lot of reach now in this digital age. That I'm interested to see how it all plays out. And I think hopefully the price will start coming down as we have like these digital maybe colleges or universities that really specify on one certain niche, but the problem is people change their mind all the time. So if you go get a 2-year degree in whatever welding, well, you may get tired of welding 4 years later, and now you haven't been educated in anything else. So I don't know, it's interesting to see.
Yeah. The world's definitely changing, and I think one of the biggest impacts in several millennia is going to be cryptocurrency. It's already starting, and I wasn't like a big student of it just until this last year, and I started really learning and studying because my background's in banking. I understand digital currency, but cryptocurrency is different. It's a currency that rides above on a different plane, above and outside institutional banking and big government, but what's cool about it is people misunderstand. People are afraid of crypto because they don't understand it. If you think about the U.S. dollar, just brief history, President Nixon in the early 70s took the U.S. dollar off of the gold standard. It used to be backed by gold, tangible, hard asset, right? He took it off the gold standard. And at that point, when you saw on the dollar bill, it said, backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government, which means it's in people's confidence in the U.S. economy, right?
Yep.
And so in any case, crypto, and the main one, the first one, Bitcoin, is really based on, its value is based on people's confidence globally, not just any one government, not just any one country, any one bank. It's globally people's confidence in the value of that, because it does represent, exchange value. You can get credit cards in crypto now. You can use crypto to buy houses and cars and all kinds of stuff. So it has exchange value just like the US dollar does. It's just not tied to the government, the US government. So I think there's probably a groundswell there that, and I'm sure big banks and governments are plotting something, because there's no way they're going to let this keep going without them trying to exert some type of control. But the way it's designed, the fact that it exists, in a whole different sphere or level, or if the dimension, if it's called a dimension, how can they control it? Because you got people in Indonesia, people in Yugoslavia, people in Greenland, people all over the planet in cryptocurrency. And the U.S. government can't say, well, we're going to control this, because then by default they're thinking, well, we got to control everybody else. Not going to happen. So in any case, we don't know. Nobody knows. All I know is I think it's going to be one of the greatest wealth building opportunities in I'm talking thousands of years. That's how serious I'm about this. And I'm extra excited because of the connection with real estate. So have you thought about that? Have you known people who bought anything exchanging some type of cryptocurrency for commodity like real estate?
I do not know anybody who's used it to buy real estate. I own some Bitcoin, some Ethereum, and other cryptocurrencies, but I don't want to act like I'm an expert. So,
yeah.
I'm curious what you think. When do you think it will stop tracking with the market? Because it seems to date it's tracked with it. I wonder at what point will it kind of pull away and separate?
Well, I don't know. This is not my opinion. This is what I'm hearing from other people as we all ask the same questions. For some reason, the year 2025 seems to pop up a lot. Now, I will tell you, in the years past, I've been blessed to be able to meet some pretty amazing people, some well-connected people, and one of them was a general in the United States Air Force, and he said since the early 2000s, they were talking about in the late 90s, early 2000s, the U.S. military started defining strategy to counter China should there ever be some type of a conflict. That was their strategic planning model, right? And then about 10 years later, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina at a conference, and there was a great economist there, and he said around the year 2022, 2023, if nothing changes, the debt is going to be so great and the interest is going to be so great, it's going to cause inflation to be a real problem. Well, now we know we got inflation. Yes, the government printed all that free money last year or two and the year before, but this is much bigger than that. Okay. And what it's causing is the revenue that we bring in taxes is going to be incapable of paying all that debt. So one of the fears is China owns a lot of our U.S. debt instruments. And if we default, I don't think they're just going to sit back and say, "Oh, that's okay. You just don't worry about it." No, they're going to come. They want their stuff. They own land here. I mean, so and I'm not an economist. I'm not a politician. I'm not a lawyer or any kind of thing like that. I'm just telling you, turn off the TV and look at the facts. Look at NPR. Read the Congressional Journal. Okay, you can see every word that's ever spoken in the House of Congress, and you'll see exactly what those people are up to. And it's not all about you and me. It does affect us, but it's all about control. That's what it's all about.
Isn't that crazy?
Yep. So, in any case, definitely educate yourselves, guys. Turn off mainstream media. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist person. I'm not, but I haven't owned a television since 2015. I just use my computer, and I do go to NPR. And you can watch C-SPAN and you can get Congressional Record. There's other sources too. But you can get all the facts the way just as they are without being interpreted and presented to persuade you to think a certain way and feel a certain way. No emotion, just raw data and raw facts. And then it'll tell you the truth. It'll tell you what you need to know. So in any case, good old real estate, guys, it's everywhere on the planet. And I don't care how bad the economy gets. These houses aren't going away. It's not like a big storm comes up and wipes them off the face of the earth. They just change hands. They go from one person to another. The wealth changes hands. And with this recession that by definition we're in, nobody knows how long it's going to be or wide or deep. We just don't know. We can prognosticate on it. But the fact is, why do that? Why worry? Why panic? Why not just plan for it and prepare for it? And you cannot go wrong with real estate because it never goes to zero,
Yep.
So I don't care how much crypto you have. I mean, I've got some too. To me, real estate that's bedrock. So people will protect their homes more than anything else.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. You can't beat it.
Yep. So get yourself 20 homes. So any I know we're starting to get over here, but any final words, JD, or anything you can think of? I know we went down a rabbit hole there at the end there, but I think it is critical. It gives people something to think about. So anything you can think of, like words of wisdom, like from your granddad or something really cool,
Oh, I was always told, pay now, play later, or if you play now, you're going to have to pay later. And so I would encourage you, put in the work now, pay your dues now so that life is more enjoyable later. And my second piece of advice would be buy as much real estate as you can. Just like Gary said, it is the best asset on planet Earth. And, you hear a lot of noise, interest rates are too high. Housing's terrible to buy it. Time to buy houses. I have been buying houses for, multiple years now, 4 to 5 years. And every year that I bought a property, somebody has asked me, why are you buying at the top of the market? I bought my first property in Charleston in 2019 for $185,000. I bought my second one across the street for $287 2 years later. And I got roasted by people. And so this was last year in 2021. Why would you pay $100,000 more than the one you bought 2 years earlier? Well, I just sold it this year for $460. So I turned it around, bought it $287, sold it for $460 in 365 days.
Nice.
So the moral of that story is drown out the noise, stop being fearful, look for good deals in good markets, and pull the trigger, and you'll look back just 3 to 5 years from now. We're not even talking super long term, and you'll be thankful you did.
Yeah, well, I'll second that. And I I always tell people, I never regretted buying a property. And there's some that gave me lots of headaches, but I can tell you I did regret selling every one I ever sold.
Yep.
So start early, buy early, and hold on to them. Just hang on to them no matter what.
That's great
I
advice.
promise you, once that mortgage is paid off, you can leverage it to buy other properties, pull money out. You get all kinds of stuff. It's an amazing investment vehicle. But JD, man, thanks for being on the show today. And I'm just so glad that you're from upstate. We got a lot of personal stuff to talk about there too, man. Clemson Tigers and Lake Hartwell and almost stomping grounds, man. It's where I grew up.
That's it. That's awesome, man. Yeah, great for the connection, and thank you guys for having me. And if anybody on the show ever wants to reach out, best place to find me is Instagram, handles @FinanceCowboy. So you guys can DM me, send any questions, follow along. I'd love to connect with any of you guys. If y'all are bringing great deals to investors, I'm an investor myself, so feel free to holler at me and put me on your list.
Yeah, and everybody listening, JD's in one of the best areas in the country. So definitely connect with them. And what's the Instagram again, if you don't mind, JD?
It's @FinanceCowboy.
@FinanceCowboy. So guys, go out there and check out @FinanceCowboy. And while you're there, please do JD a favor, and well, me too. Leave a review. Leave a good review for this podcast, because you got some good golden nuggets on this one. A good place to invest. You got a connection there. We love to have your reviews. We appreciate it. And after you're done that, then go back to the globalinvestoragent.com. Select yourself an agent in your area that's trained to identify, analyze, and help negotiate properties for you and I, the investor. And if you're an agent, do not hesitate. One of the secrets in real estate is to not wait, especially if you're an investor. You don't want to wait and buy. You want to buy and wait, And if you're an agent, you don't wait to see what the economy's doing. You got to skate where the puck is going. You got to plan your model to meet the economy in the direction that it's going. That's what successful agents do. Think like a business person. So in any case, that's our preaching moment for today. You guys take care of yourselves. God bless you and your families. And we'll see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.